develop a set of best practices which becomes across the board, everybody would look at it. So you have looked at some of the best in class. There are few suggestions, but a broader group, if they can work together and come up with what you would consider to be best practices in ITG, then you would find ITG taking a better route, becoming more important, people understanding it better. Because I think that from the chartered institutes, that book is very useful. The best practices, I think a lot of people look at it, even if you're not an accountant, you will start learning what's required. So in that context, I think SLID can take as a next step to this, to build up on something that can become a handy tool, a guideline or a guide to the board directors on this area. So even if you're not necessarily IT expert, you can learn the essentials that will help you to do the ITG properly.
Yes, great.
So for the moment, I don't think that, I think your statement is right. What you found, that ITG is still far away from both corporate governance, but certainly it's an important part that somebody should build up. And there isn't any IT organization that will be responsible for that, like the chartered accountants.
Sure. So clearly the best practice guidelines have helped to evolve the board governance to levels of what it is today. And I think that's something what you're saying is that we need to have something on board IT governance of similar nature that can actually help in that endeavor to uplift the board IT governance to levels that is desired. Yeah, no, great. I totally agree with you, and I'm sure everyone will concur with that. Kithsiri, I want to come to the question that I said I will ask you. Why is the public sector lagging behind rest of the sectors? And we hear a lot sometimes on technology. The latest we hear is from the the Inland Revenue Department, where the parliamentary committee is sort of talking about a 10 billion investment and saying, where is this? What's happening? Right? So how do you sort of assess this? And because it's so critical for the country. If you talk about the digital ID, if you talk about Inland Revenue RAMIs, Sri Lanka Insurance Corp is a big entity. So if we have the public sector get into grips with board IT governance or IT governance for that matter, I think this could be a huge impact in the private sector. In fact, can match and the whole countries possibly there can be a good way forward for the country.
Arjuna, the thing is, lagging is not only for public sector. I see that private sector boards are also having the same thing. As I really agree with Professor Ranasinghe, having equally good 2 or 3 IT guys in a board is a problem. Better to have a good one guy and another 1 or 2 supportive guys. Because on my own experience in my board, the treasury representative also IT guy, which will, easy for me to communicate with the treasury and the finance minister to get the funds and do things easily. So that's a very supportive role for second IT guy. So the thing is, if you get a person, one super IT guy, and if you have enough seats in your board, can get 1 or 2, but those have to be supportive guys. And other important thing is, within your institution, you have to form a very powerful digital transformation committee. Which board level? The board, 1 or 2 board members should represent that and get the top management of each and every department. They have to get them on board. Because when you get in Sri Lanka insurance experience, there are junior guys where they have better knowledge than the senior guys in terms of IT. So what I did was I identified those people and I got them into the digital transformation committee. So now I am working with them. So that sort of decisions you have to take. If you have, in your question, I would love to have 1 or 2, but then it will be a mix of a lot of arguments and mismatches will come. So it should be a little bit of a one person dominate sort of thing will be a good my feeling is that.
Right, okay. Maybe that's another point for debate as we go along. I don't want to debate that. So good. No, I think there are 2 sides to it. And
that was from experience because,
yes.
I have seen some boards, things are not happening. Now here in my case, the rest of the board is very supportive. So they will try to get the correct thing and correct in place, but I'll talk to them, they support it. But if many arguments like mismatches, things can delay. Right. So that's the secret behind, within 4 to 5 months time, we managed to implement 2 core systems whereas they couldn't do in 10 years.
Sure. Good. Thanks. So, Ruvini, coming back to that question that I said I'll ask you was that the boards that didn't have, the other group, not the best-in-class group, though not having sort of IT governance at a higher level, didn't feel that they were challenged by IT decisions. My question to you is there any kind of, do you have any thoughts around this whole proposition, how you feel about it?
That's an interesting question.
Yes.
I think they are mainly, the adoption of technology is something we do as a community. And businesses become more and more aware of IT usage, how it can help in their competitiveness, profitability, only if the ecosystem around it builds up. So I think even as a country, this is my opinion, as a country, the adoption of technology in different areas, and you were referring to with Kithsiri about the public sector. So whether we pay taxes or we pay our, other dues to the government or whatever we do, even our transactions with each other and with government and with institutions is still at a lower level of technology adoption. If the ecosystem develops and more people begin to use technology for more day-to-day transactions, then I think naturally the awareness and the need for businesses to respond to it with their own strategy would be faster. So as a country also, I think our level of adoption is less. As that increases, I think these companies would feel the need to transform. And that's something that has to evolve faster. So there has to be leadership from both sides, public and private sector. The other thing could be, again, us as a nation, we are a little bit hesitant to take risks and adapt to sort of changes. I think if we look across at our neighboring country, India, the adoption has been much higher. They use IT for a lot more things than we do. So here again, companies, it's easier for a board or for a management team to grapple with day-to-day problems, right? Try to firefight, do a little bit of something, strategies to improve market share, do something to improve sales, cut costs, do a few things like that. But the decision to leapfrog and adopt a technology strategy is something you have to proactively do. Nobody will nudge you and say, look, do this, right? It's something you have to observe happening in the rest of the world, take examples from other countries or similar businesses, and then proactively you say, okay, I want to make IT an important part of my strategy, and then get the necessary people in and do that. So again, I think without being overly critical, I think corporate Sri Lanka is a little bit slow to sort of take proactive steps like that. It's a bit similar to our export competitiveness thing, Arjuna, right? Many of our companies were very happy serving the domestic market until the Forex crisis actually hit us. And then we realized, we need to be able to be globally competitive, regionally competitive, and generate foreign exchange for all our businesses. Came a little bit late in the day. So I hope IT does not become that. So IT as a strategy is going to pervade every part of society, business, including SMEs. So I think, again, it's something that we have to embrace proactively, and maybe these companies were not really looking at it that way.
Sure. No, great, thanks. Yeah, you're right to say the familiarity with the subject is correlated to how the environment is evolving, so very clearly. That's a useful point. So Anoop, coming to you, we spoke about strategic versus operation and reliance on IT. We also sort of spoke about offensive versus defensive strategy in competing using technology. At a board level, you require different skills and expertise based on the stance that you take in this respect. So my question to you is, do you see in serving clients, I suppose you know clients in Sri Lanka as well, do you see this as a challenge? Do you see this, I want an assessment from you of where it stands and what is required from the corporate community to get to a bit more strategic direction, to get to more offensive IT sort of governance and use of IT, and some thoughts around that would be very useful for the corporate community.
I mean, as an IT person, I would love offensive strategy all the way.
Yes.
It means more investment, but a quick take on the public sector part, I think just mentioned a while back, right? As a country, we have 20 million plus people,
yes,
citizens, with a high mobile penetration, high internet penetration as well. My take on the public sector part is all it takes might be a better financial inclusion and possibly some utility-related services to possibly drive the change much quicker. I mean, as we've seen in India, India was a very minute percentage from a digital financial transaction standpoint. Today, we are the largest in the entire world, matter of 3 years. So I think that's a tipping point from a public sector services standpoint. Back to question, Arjuna, I think strategic versus operational IT, I think that has been a discussion point a while as well, wherein you intend to use technology to serve the business goals. Operational is more about keeping lights on. But very interesting emergence is offensive versus defensive IT governance strategies, right? If I can take a step back, maybe a couple of decades back, right? When I began sitting in IT industry, the discussion with the client was always at the IT head level, okay, CIO level. Any discussion would be application discussion or infra discussion at the IT CIO level. A decade later, we had involvement CFO coming in, right? 5 years back, possibly CEO also got involved. It's a very pleasant change that now we see a board member involved in the final, evaluation stage. I think it's a different evolution from a passive to active involvement. From a offensive versus defensive approach, I think we strongly would recommend a balanced approach. Though a lot depends on the company's phase of business, competitive advantage that they want to achieve. But we've seen people taking calls on both the sides quite often. A balanced approach has typically worked well. I think we heard a while back that board has not seen the results in some investments, especially in IT big investments. I believe that's possibly because of more offensive than defensive sometimes, right? As a service provider, as CP, we are quite proud to share that more than 60% GDP in India runs through SAP applications. That's a big statement, right? But again, and the reason for that possibly is because we help customers bridge this very well. From a functionality standpoint, we enable them at the highest quadrant. At the same time, from an agility standpoint, we give them all options to start small and grow big as well. So I think it's more about being a balanced approach than being totally on either defensive or offensive side.
Good. Thank you very much. No, great. So I think I'm just wondering whether we have questions from the audience. Any questions from audience, so that yes, the panel can answer and we can answer. So I'll start with Fairuz and then to Mr. Ajit Tudave. Over to you, Fairuz. Can we have a mic over there?
Thank you for organizing such a wonderful forum. I think this is a must to have a topic. There are real value addition on this one, because this is one of my research area as well.